Okay, so I want to talk about something that I feel like a lot of people kinda know, but not really. And that's the difference between manga, manhwa, webtoon, ranobe, fanfics. Because people use these words like they are the same thing, but actually they don't. They look similar on the surface. You open them, they are panels, they are characters, there is a story. But the culture behind them, the way they are made, the way they feel to read, the genres they favor, all of that is actually pretty different. So the goal of this video is simple. By the end, you will actually know what these things are, where it comes from, and most importantly, what is the difference between them. Let's go. Let's start with manga because it is the oldest and globally the most established one of the three. Manga is a Japanese art form, sequential storytelling through panels and images, almost always in black and white, almost always read from right to left. And yes, people call it the Japanese comics, but I would push back on that framing a little because manga has its own visual language, its own storytelling rhythm, and its own culture that really doesn't map neatly onto what most people think of when they hear the word comics. The roots of manga go back centuries. The way Japanese illustrated scrolls telling the stories through images as far back as 12th century. But the modern form of manga, the one we read today, really took shape in the early 20th century. A cartoonist named Kitazawa Rakuten published what's considered one of the first modern manga strips in 1902. Then, after World War II, everything changed because of one person, Osamu Tezuka. People call him the god of the manga, and that title is completely earned. He invented the visual grammar that manga still uses, the expressive eyes, the cinematic panel flow, the way emotions are conveyed through art rather than just words. Every mangaka working today owes something to him. Manga is typically serialized, meaning it runs chapter by chapter in monthly or weekly magazines, like Weekly Shonen Jump, and then they collected into volumes which called tankapon. And here I have some volumes of Death Note. These ones are called tankapon. Like they are chapter by chapter serialized here. The artist, called a mangaka, usually handles both the writing and the art, which is genuinely a massive workload. Most people have assistants who handle backgrounds and screen tones, those dot patterns you see for shading, while the mangaka focuses on the actual panels and characters. The black and white format isn't an aesthetic choice as much as a practical one. Color takes too long when you are publishing weekly. Manga is divided into demographics first and then genres. Shonen targets younger male readers and is where you find most of the big action series. Seinen is more mature, aimed at adult men, and tends to have more complex storytelling. Shoujo is a romance and emotional drama aimed at younger women. And josei is similar, but for adult women. Within those, the most popular genres are action, fantasy, horror, romance, and isekai, genres that has absolutely exploded over the last decade. The most popular titles can be One Piece, Naruto, Dragon Ball, Attack on Titan, Fullmetal Alchemist, Death Note, Hunter x Hunter, Berserk, Jujutsu Kaisen, Bleach, Vagabond. Most of these have anime adaptations that became just as iconic as manga themselves. Naruto ran as anime for over 700 episodes. Attack on Titan's anime became one of the most watched shows globally. Dragon Ball shaped an entire generation. These aren't just manga, they are cultural events. The most popular mangaka I can name Eiichiro Oda, Akira Toriyama, Masashi Kishimoto, Hajime Isayama, Yoshihiro Togashi, Hiromu Arakawa, Naoki Urasawa. Manhwa is Korean, While it shares the same simple idea, sequential storytelling, zero panel, almost everything else about it is different. Manhwa has existed in print for decades, but the moment that actually defined it globally was the early 2000s, when Korean platforms like Daum and Naver started publishing comics online as vertical scrolling strips. This wasn't just a format change, it was a complete reinvention of how comics are distributed, read, and monetized. That format became the webtoon format, which we will get to shortly, but the key point is that manhwa was early to digital and that shaped its entire identity. Modern manhwa is almost entirely produced as colored digital episodes. A creator scripts the story, builds vertical layouts, draws and colors everything digitally, and uploads to a platform. It's left to right, same reading direction as a Western book, and it is designed from the ground up to be read on a phone screen. Genres. Action fantasy is by far the biggest, then romance. There is also a genre called regression, where the protagonist dies and wakes up in the past with all their knowledge and memory, which is massive right now in manhwa specifically. Martial arts and school life is also staples. Most popular titles I can name: Solo Leveling, Tower of God, Lookism, True Beauty, The God of High School, Noblesse, Sweet Home. Solo leveling in particular became a global phenomenon. It has been adapted into an anime that aired in 2024 and immediately became one of the most watched anime of the year, despite manhwa readers already knowing the whole story, like me. And also, the second season came in last year, which is 2025. And first season won the Anime Awards of 2025, which is like mind-blowing. The God of High School and Tower of God both got anime adaptations through Crunchyroll as part of a direct manhwa to anime push. Manhwa is Chinese, and this one is genuinely more complex than the other two, because you're not dealing with one unified market. Mainland China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong each have their own comic traditions that developed pretty differently over the decades, partly because of regional politics, different censorship systems, and different publishing histories. Manhwa has roots going back early to 20th century newspaper cartoons, but its modern digital form really grew through platforms like Bilibili Comics and Kwaikan Manhwa, and the global audience found it through fan translations and English language platform releases. Modern manhwa is usually full color, left to right, and heavily tied to web novel source material. A lot of manhwa starts as a written web novel, published on platforms like Kidian, and then gets adapted into comic when it's proven popular. Team-based production is common, similar to webtoons, and this is where manhwa becomes really distinct. Shansha is about characters cultivating spiritual energy over lifetimes to reach immortality. It is a uniquely Chinese genre tradition that doesn't exist in quite the same way in manga or manhwa. Shuhia is the martial arts epic rooted in Chinese literary history going back centuries. Xuanhua blends those elements with darker Western fantasy. Historical romance is also huge. They are whole reading cultures with their own rules and the reader expectation. The most popular titles I can name: Battle Through the Heavens, Soul Land, Tales of Demons and Gods, The King's Avatar, and a lot more. And now Webtoon. And this is important because Webtoon is a format, not nationality. It doesn't mean Korean comics. It doesn't mean manhwa specifically, while these two are closely related. It means a comic that is built for vertical scrolling, published digitally in episodes, almost always in full color. The format was born in South Korea in the early 2000s. The word comes from web and cartoon, which you probably didn't know. And Naver Webtoon was the platform that built the model. Then Line Webtoon internationalized it, and today the platform has over 100 million users worldwide, with creators publishing from Korea, the US, Europe, and everywhere else. Here is what makes the format actually different as a storytelling tool. A manga artist sings in pages. A webtoon artist sings in scroll distance. You can place the reveal exactly where a reader's thumb will stop. You can build tension across 6 screens of silence before something happens. The pacing mechanics are genuinely different, and when a creator uses them well, the reading experience is unlike anything else. Romance and fantasy dominate. Thriller and horror work extremely well in the format because of how the scroll controls information. Action is big. Slice of life has a strong audience too. The most popular genres can be Lore Olympus, Unordinary, True Beauty, Sub-Zero. Worth noting, Tower of God and True Beauty appears in both manhwa and webtoons list because they are manhwa published in webtoon format. Ranobe or light novel is a Japanese prose fiction. It is not a comic, it is a novel, but it is shorter than standard novel, written in accessible language and illustrated with anime style art scattered throughout every few chapters. The format became established in late 70s, but the reason why it matters so much today is that Ranobe is basically the engine feeding the anime industry. The huge percentage of modern anime started as a light novel. The typical pipeline goes like this. An author publishes a web novel for free on a site called Shosetsu. It builds a massive readership. A publisher picks it up, commissions the illustration, and releases it as a proper Ranobe. Then it gets a manga adaptation, then an anime. That whole chain is incredibly common. Isekai absolutely dominates. After that, fantasy, school romance, sci-fi, and horror is also popular. Most popular titles can be Sword Art Online, Re:Zero, Overlord, No Game No Life, Mushoku Tensei, Haruhi Suzumiya. That time I got reincarnated as a slime. Almost every of these has an anime adaptation that became genuinely popular in its own right. Re:Zero, Overlord, and Mushoku Tensei in particular have massive anime fan bases. Okay, fanfictions. And this one gets more dismissed than it should. Fanfics are stories written by fans using characters or worlds from existing works. People have always done this, retelling stories, rewriting endings, imagining what happens between chapters. The internet just gave them scale and organization. Archive of Our Own, known as AO3, has over 10 million works on it. Fanfiction.net has been running since 1998. The biggest fandoms producing fanfics are One Piece, Naruto, My Hero Academia. So there's a heavy overlap with manga and manhwa fan bases, which makes sense. Okay, so I have gone through all of these individually, but let me actually pull the differences together, because that's the whole point of this video. The clearest way to think about it is this. Manga, manhwa, and manhua are defined by where they are come from and the culture behind them. Webtoon is defined by its format, and Ranobe is defined by its medium. It is a prose, not comic. In terms of origin, manga is Japanese, manhwa is Korean, and manhua is Chinese. That sounds obvious, but it matters because each of them comes with completely different genre traditions, art styles, and publishing cultures. Manga's genres are built around demographics. Manhwa's modern identity is built around the digital platform model. Manhwa's genres are rooted in Chinese traditions, history, and literature. The Shanxia and Wuxia tradition don't really have equivalents in anywhere else. In terms of format, manga is black and white, page-based right-left. Manhwa and manhua are almost always in color and read left to right. Webtoons, which most popular manhwa uses, are vertical scroll, full color. In terms of how they reach anime, manga has the most established pipeline. A successful manga runs in a magazine, builds a readership, and gets an anime adaptation. That has been the standard path for decades. Manhwa is newer to this, but it is happening fast, with Solo Leveling, Tower of God, and The God of High School all getting anime. Manhwa fits into donghua, Chinese animation, rather than Japanese anime, and Ranobe, as we talk about, is arguably the most important source of anime content right now. And fanfics sit outside all of these commercially, but they are the part of the same ecosystem. They are what happens when an audience loves something so much that they keep creating inside it. So manga, manhwa, manhua, not the same thing. Different countries, different histories, different visual styles, different genre traditions, different ways of reaching a reader. Webtoon changed the format entirely. Ranobe fits the anime industry quietly from behind the scenes. And fanfics are the proof that good story makes more stories. Once you understand the actual differences, you will notice them when you read them. And you will also notice how much these worlds borrow from each other, how the lines blur, and how they are all the part of the same one massive global storytelling culture that's honestly getting only bigger. If you want me to go deeper on any of these specifically, drop it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you in the next one.